Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Pick Six podcast. This is episode number 7. I'm with my friend here, Drake Magruder at Drake's PC. I'm DPZ, at PC with DPZ on Instagram. And this is our 7th episode, and we have some fun topics. Drake, how's it going, man?
Dennis, I'm doing well. It's hard to believe it's episode number 7, lucky number 7. I'm back from another work trip this week. I was in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And if you don't know, that's near Cincinnati. And it's kind of an interesting deal. You know, you say they call it like the Cincinnati airport, but the letters are CVG, which is Covington. So it's actually in Covington, Kentucky. And so you land in Covington, Kentucky. You get your rental car, you leave the parking lot, you get on the interstate. As soon as you get on the interstate, you're actually in Ohio. And then I hang a left on 275 and go west. And, you know, in about 10 or 15 minutes, I cross the Ohio River into Indiana. So it's like you knock out, 3 states in about 15 minutes, which is kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you could be in that. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that whole area at all, so it's interesting. As you travel around, man, I'm learning more about the contagious United States. Cool.
Yeah, man, it's great. It's great. But I'm actually home the next 2.5 weeks, so I'm looking forward to a little, like, not being on an airplane and tied to commercial travel schedules and sleeping in sketchy hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff. So
absolutely. So, a quick reminder to everybody who do watch and enjoy and give us the listen or the watch on YouTube and Dustin's Sports Card Dad channel. This podcast actually lives specifically on Spotify. You can find it there. You can watch us there. You can listen to us there. So it's just obviously just a listening format. So I'm uploading those every single week following the YouTube release on the Sports Card Dad channel. So definitely tune in there if you want to listen to something, or if you have that format and you're for it. It should be ad-free because I made sure of it. So again, appreciate you being here as well, and continue to share it with your friends. Tell people about what we're doing here. Drake and I are just 2 collectors that ask a lot of questions. So we're doing that here, and we're going to continue to do that here. So Drake, let's start it off with mail days, man. What do you got?
Oh, yeah. Well, so this actually isn't a mail day. I've actually had this, and it'll be a good segue to our first topic. So this is a Peyton Manning 2011 National Treasures full equipment game worn shield. Cool. I think it's awesome how it says, authentic game worn on the front, and then you flip it over on the back. It says 1 of 1. It gives all the, wording that we look for today. It's worn in a game. So this is one of my favorite cards. This was actually my first NFL shield that I got. And I picked it up at the first National I went to. So the 2021 National. It's actually kind of an interesting story. I'll share real quick, and maybe this will give some folks some insight. So I'm in a Peyton Manning group chat on Instagram, and somebody, I don't remember who it was, that was 3 years ago now, somebody posted, "Hey, I saw this. I don't remember what table it was, but just wanted to let you guys know." And I saw that, and I went like overdrive instantly. I'm like, I got to find this card. And at the National, trying to find a specific card is like a needle in a haystack. And so I'm literally just scouring tables, just back and forth, just looking for this card and asking dealers. And the person who said it said, "Hey, I think it's about by this certain column." And I'm going, well, that really doesn't narrow it down very much. and so I get over there and I found the card, and I was like, I got to figure out a way to make this happen. And I'm probably the worst in like in-person negotiation, because I'm like see card, won't card, and like throw myself all over the person. I'm like, gotta have card, So I am like relinquishing all my negotiation skills. You're supposed to act coy about it and not really sure. That's not what I do. I'm like, let's make this happen. And so anyway, so at the time, that was kind of when I was transitioning from, buying the flavors of the week and trying to sell them and that whole sort of thing. So I had a bunch of cards that were in my box, and I just kind of showed them what I had, and I traded away a bunch of stuff that I really didn't care about, and I was able to get that card like full trade. And it's a card I still have. It's still in the one touch that it came in. I have no desire to get it graded. I think it's beautiful just the way it is. But I think it speaks to, just having connections and having people that will look out for cards for you at a show, will let you know about cards. And then having the firepower, I guess we'll call it, where if you need to make a trade or kind of whatever the case may be, you've got that kind of ready to go. So yeah, that's my card this week.
Great. I don't have anything, so I haven't really been buying. I mean, I get other than like $20 87 Fleer PSA 9s for that set I'm trying to collect. I'll grab a couple here and there. There's a Probstein auction that ended last night. I was able to snag a couple of those, which was great to add to the collection slowly but surely. But that has been a fun way to collect for me. Staying away from the big priced cards for now or for a while because I need to, but just because I'm just having a lot of fun collecting that way. So for those of you that haven't done that yet, I mean, I highly recommend if you have that, desire to set collect. It's a lot of fun. It's a blast. So again, I'll continue to promote that because that's another part of my journey in the hobby is now getting into that. The set registry with PSA is just a blast. So that's what I've been doing. Hey, we probably got questions, or since you're home, you're not going to have some trivia from where you're at. So I imagine we're going to jump into some questions.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So the first question, actually, it's a good segue with our national talk. It actually comes from a listener. His name is AJM Cards 94 on Instagram. And he asked, and I know you're not going to the national this year, but thinking of maybe prior years, Dennis, what are you doing now to prepare for the national? And then I'll ask one because it was very specific, but it said, how do I meet Drake at the national? And it made me laugh to see this. And just a simple direct message. That's what I do. Shoot me a message. I actually, in my notes on my phone, I always keep track of, who are the people that reach out. And then week of the national or when I'm there, I'm shooting direct messages and I'm like, hey, let's meet up. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I'm not hard to find. I'm 6'5". So I usually stand out in a crowd just for that reason. But certainly if anybody wants to meet up, I know we've got a wrestling card trade night. The main event number 2 is coming up on Friday night. I know there's lots of other activities that are going to be going on. So don't hesitate to reach out if you'd like to meet up. So I'd certainly love to do it. But just flip it to you, Dennis. What if you were going to the national this year and about 3 months from now, what would you be doing right now to prepare for that?
I'd definitely be trying to find out, what events are going on that I'd be interested in being a part of. I'd be reaching out to my hobby friends to find out a way to meet up with them, figure out what they're doing, and try to meet and find ways to meet up with some of them. I've in the past, I've seen some of the groups that I know well, and it looks like they're having a blast. And just being together and the fellowship of being with your other collective friends, hobby friends, looks like a blast to me. Almost as much fun as going there to look for cards. I almost feel like that's almost 80% of it. It's just going there to meet and hang out with all the people and you dialogue with or do shows with or whatever throughout the year. That's what I probably would be doing something like that. Just preparing by setting up what my agenda is going to be, who I'm going to hang out with. Yeah, no,
that's the same in referring back to my Peyton Manning group chat. We've already been talking and everybody wants to know who's going to show up, which days and how long you're staying and where folks are staying. And I think that's important too. If you don't have a hotel right now, I would certainly encourage you to do that quickly. I know the national website, they have a link where you can get, in some cases, some better rates for hotels. With Cleveland, it's a little bit different from Chicago. Chicago, all these major hotels are right there. You can walk to the convention center. With Cleveland, it's a bit of a drive. There's some hotels that are, potentially like a mile away, and some offer shuttles and things like that. But I would certainly, there's a few I know, at least as a Hilton loyalist, I guess I'll say, there's a few on my app that I look through that are showing as sold out. So don't wait till the last minute. Most hotels have like a, 5-day cancellation policy. So would definitely go ahead and encourage you to get your hotel. And if your plans change or you decide to stay somewhere else or whatever the case may be, then you can always cancel. So that piece of it, and then I would start looking at the tickets, figure out what kind of tickets you want. Like for me this year, I usually get the early entry ticket. So you can get in 30 minutes early and there's some other perks and things like that. But this year, I actually think I'm going to get the VIP ticket. It's about $50 more, but it gives you a parking pass. And I'm going to be driving over because the hotel I'm staying at is a little bit of ways. But it gives you a spot to park in, which I think, is and when it's in Chicago, that really doesn't make a difference to me because you're walking everywhere. But I think if you're going to be driving in, that could potentially be worth it. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to try that. Try that out. But yeah, just and the next thing is to start making a list of cards you want. Maybe cards you haven't seen in a while. Cards like, man, if I saw this at the National, this is one that I want to go after. And then it's probably a little early now, but maybe start looking at your PC and start thinking about like, hey, is this a card I want to keep? Am I ready to move on from it? And then just, decide if you want to sell it now and kind of hold that cash, or, for some people, it'd be better to wait until the last minute, because if you sell it now and you have that cash, it might be burning a hole in your pocket. So, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And the last thing is that if you see folks that have cards that you may want, reach out to them now and maybe just ask them if they're planning to attend the National and what days they're going to be there, and start working on a deal now. And that way, you may potentially have a deal lined up even before you get there, and then you just go meet in the hotel lobby or at the convention center, and boom, you're done. So that's my suggestions.
Got it. No, makes sense. Good question.
Yeah, no, it's good. It was good. Thank you for that. And so I guess on a somewhat related note, we learned recently that Fanatics is having the inaugural Fanatics Fest at the Javits Center in New York the next month in August. And so, it seems like a more maybe like a Comic-Con, not so much a card show type thing, but more like hey, there's a bunch of athletes. Tom Brady's going to be there. Peyton Manning's going to be there. Hulk Hogan. Lots of other folks are going to be there. And it's the ability to go there and kind of listen to them talk. And, with it being the first event, who really knows what to expect? But, with Fanatics at the helm and, the connections they have, the money that they have, they're going to want to make a big splash with the first event. So I guess my question is, are you planning to go? And if you're not planning to go, what could they do to make you want to go, potentially?
Yeah, I mean, living in Seattle, that's a pretty big commitment to go all the way over to New York for an event. But it does look tempting. I think it sounds like they're trying to have another event that feels like the National, but has a bit more going on, and trying to encompass, the fan fests and card shows with the Comic-Cons, like the Comic-Con for sports cards seems to be the way they're spinning it. That's the narrative. I think anything like this that brings collectibles and collecting into the mainstream spotlight is a good thing. It just furthers the it furthers the interest in collecting cards. Because I still believe and people keep talking about 10xing the hobby. I just remove that 10x the hobby comment and just go, well, what's good? What can Fanatics and other companies within the industry do to engage more people in the hobby? And I think because there's a lot of people out there, I believe, that aren't collecting right now that would collect. Because I wasn't collecting 5 years ago. It was the last thing on my mind, and now it's all I do. It's all I think about. I love it. It's my passion. It's just it's taken the place of music in a weird way for me when I played music for so long, and I love it now. I enjoy it so much. So there are probably other people out there like me who aren't thinking about cards. They might have heard a little bit about it during the COVID boom and can still be a very active participant in the hobby and collect a lot of the stuff that a lot of us love. Of course, we'd love to see more entrants into the hobby that would collect responsibly and create a better market for a lot of the cards we're collecting. But I think Fanatics doing stuff like this is just going to continue to create awareness around it. So I'm bullish on it. I think it's great. It is tempting to want to go. I think maybe there's some folks that are in New York that we can lean on and say, hey, if they go and check it out. I know I've got some hobby friends over there that I know are going to be talking about it, attending it. So overall, I think it's a great thing. And if it turns out to be the Comic-Con or another national, that's a big event that draws interest and engagement. And it's more publicized than the national, because the national kind of feels like it's just, from what I understand, it's more of like the collecting community really knows about it. But outside of the collecting community, nobody knows about the national. I don't believe. I never knew about it before when I got back into the hobby. I had no idea what the national was. But I knew what Comic-Cons were, because they have them in Seattle all the time. People are dressed up like characters. You knew what Comic-Cons were. So if it's going to become an event that rivals a Comic-Con for sports cards, that's a good thing. That's going to get on a lot of people's radars.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So it sounds like your recommendation to Michael Rubin is, hey, Fanatics Fest #2 needs to be in Seattle. DPZ will be there.
I mean, not even bad. I just think that if it's always in New York, yeah, you're going to, it'll limit your exposure to how many people, but there's so many people in Northeast America. I mean, that's just where a lot of our population sits. So I get why we want to keep stuff there. Makes sense. I totally understand. West Coast would be more likely Las Vegas, LA. I can feel like that would probably make more sense. Not Seattle. That's not, we get not a lot of things come up here, right? We're kind of alone up here. We get it. It's okay. We kind of like it, to be honest. But event wise, I think, yeah, they probably would bounce between the West Coast and the East Coast. That would make some sense. But Las Vegas, LA. But yeah, overall, I think the event, it's great. That's a great thing for the hobby, man. It shows that the Fanatics are putting the money where their mouth is.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Well, you can't feel too bad. We get nothing in Arkansas, so it skips right over us. It goes to Memphis or Tennessee, and then it goes to Oklahoma City or Dallas. So
totally.
That's kind of the way it is. We can be a flyover state at times, but it's a beautiful state. However, we did get John Calipari from Kentucky, so
you did get John Calipari from Kentucky.
It's not all bad.
Congratulations, my friend. You definitely support a great coach. So.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and just kind of to get my perspective on it, I agree with all your points. I think for me, I think what would get me to go to an event like that, first of all, I'm not planning to go, right? It's like 2 weeks after the National, and it's hard enough for me to twist my wife's arm when I travel so much for work to say, hey, let me go spend another 4 days in a hotel and, by myself and, look at a bunch of shiny pictures of men and that whole sort of thing. And, it's hard enough just for that to say, then come back and say, hey, babe, 2 weeks later, would it be okay if I go do it all over again? I can tell you the answer to that right now. And she's very supportive of me in the hobby, but I can tell you the answer to how that's going to go right now. But if I were to go, one thing that would be appealing to me is that if somehow you had a certain kind of access to the, a level of access to these folks where it didn't cost an arm and a leg, right? So as I understand it, Peyton Manning's going to be there. And I think it would be cool for me as a collector if they're like, hey, he's going to talk to a group of, 1,000 people or whatever the number is. But if you get this extra level, you get to go and, shake his hand and get an autograph or talk to him for, 5 minutes or something like that, kind of whatever the case may be. So I think the Fanatics, as I understand it, is trying to do more with enhancing that fan and collector experience. And I think getting to spend time with your heroes or, folks you look up to, folks you collect or whatever, I think would be a neat opportunity to do that, when at the National, for example, when they have all of the autograph signings with the crazy lines and all that, they're zipping them in and out just quickly as they can. And so you really don't have time to spend a lot of time with the person other than just having them sign something. So if there's some way, and maybe there is, I haven't really dug into it yet, but just to have that, further access through an event like this, I think that would be awesome.
Right.
So, all right. So, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, anyway, I should probably just leave it. I'm going to leave it alone. But I can't leave it alone. When you talk about going to another week and spending time with your in a hotel room with shiny cards with men on it, probably want to stay away from that explanation and maybe just explain it like I'm going to go hang out with my friends. Because when you say I want to stay in a hotel, okay. Anyway, that would probably be I want to keep this parental, this like a kid friendly show. So anyway, that's a great response to the question, Drake.
It's a very open and honest response.
I had a really hard time focusing on the rest of what you said when I thought of why would you say it that way? Why would you say that out loud? Okay. But that's okay, I mean, we just, anyway.
It's all right. Good. It's all good. All right. So the next topic to talk about, we're not the first ones to talk about it. We won't be the last, but evidently a whole bunch of signed Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer cards have hit the market. And I believe it was Darren Ravel with his new venture Collect first kind of reported on it, saying that somehow a collector was able to get Michael Jordan to sign 11 of his 1986 Fleer rookie cards, and PSA was on site at the time to grade these cards. And one day somebody had one, the pop report was, I think, 5 or something, and then the next day they wake up and the pop report is all of a sudden inflated, and everybody goes, what's going on? And this happened. And so, lots of people are wondering, what this person had to do to get Michael Jordan to sign this card, because, he's got the license with Upper Deck. He hadn't signed a Fleer card unless you got it at his camp. And that ended, 7 or 8 years ago or something like that. So, the 86 Fleer, Michael Jordan, is not a card you see every day, but all of a sudden we saw 11 more very quickly. And, from what people said, the person was cracking out PSA 10s, PSA 9s, just the guts to do something like that, number one. But then now, according to Collect, right, having it signed and then regraded, a PSA 1010 potentially, that added another 0 to the dollar figure, to the value of that card. So it's very interesting. So what are your thoughts on that, Dennis?
Great question, Drake. I think that from what I can see on Collect, there was a market that was created when he did this. Obviously, you take the risk of cracking those cards out of the cases from a 10 and signing them. You take the risk of that becoming a 9, which makes it a $16,000 card from a $180,000 card. So there's a risk there. But I also feel like, and I think we're learning as we grow in all this, long term, 300 is a lot of cards for a PSA 10 to carry 100 or more. So this was a way to create rarity. And I know some people were saying in our group, and I kind of agree, it's why I stay away from aftermarket autos. But I think with Michael Jordan, it might be a little different because he's so difficult to get the sign. He's not a guy who does it a lot. If it's like Tim Duncan, if it's like Ken Griffey Jr., people like that sign like all the time, you can buy one of those for the rest of your life, one a day for the rest of your life, and probably never run out. That's how many there are out there. That's why they don't carry the value. But Michael Jordan does. It's because he doesn't sign very often. So I think that you're probably fine if you own those cards signed anyway. And I think if you're the guy breaking them out, I think it's a risk worth taking if you have that many of them. Sounds like he had some with inscribed messages too. They could still be 10s. Looks like he's just trying to sell and make more money. He might just want to keep 1 10 alone. But it doesn't look like he did that. It looks like he took all the ones he had and turned them all into different kinds of cards, which is bold, but I think it'll favor him in the end. So that's my thought.
Yep, exactly. No, it's good. It's interesting. And it's an interesting thing to look at. I kind of go back and forth. I'm not an aftermarket autograph guy, but I've got a Hulk Hogan 1982 Wrestling All-Stars. It's a PSA 8.5. It's actually a Pop 1 as an 8.5. And I kind of like, man, it'd be kind of neat to have that signed. But I know if I pop it out, it's probably going to come back an 8, right? And then what if he smears the auto and it's a 8.9? Then I'm going to be disappointed that I did it. So anyways, that's that. But no, it's very interesting. So if you want to know more about it, check out Collect. It gives you all the details.
Absolutely.
So the next topic, what causes you to pivot from your main PC to adding side PCs, and what do you do to prioritize like subsequent purchases? So just kind of from my end, right? So like I PC Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, wrestling cards. And every now and then I'm like, hey, I think I might want to pivot and go buy this wrestler or something. And then I kind of go back, and then maybe sometimes I end up selling those cards and moving back to the main PC. So like, what causes you to pivot off of your main PC and say, hey, I'd like to start collecting this person?
Oh, I don't know. Sometimes you watch a documentary, you start watching, reading some books. I read a lot of what got me into 87 Fleer again is I love that set as a kid for basketball, and I've been listening and watching a lot of documentaries on like the Dream Team in '92, Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen, John Stockton, all the Michael Jordan, the Kobe Bryant, Phil Jackson's book. A ton of those books the Audible books I've been listening to, reading, quote unquote, listening to. Finished a bunch of them. So I've been like just immersed in that, in my opinion, the golden era of basketball from like 80 to like 2000. But that was when I loved and cared about basketball more than anything, and along with baseball. Those are my things, right? So I really identified with it. So it made me want to go, look into getting more David Robinson, and now thinking about collecting the set and getting some of these like 97 finest things like that. So I went that direction because of like my interest in that period of time in basketball players. And I can't just start piecing every guy, right? So I just get some of these cool sets like 97 finest, 96, 87 fleet. You can get some of these cool cards of these players from back then, the stickers or whatever. And it kind of allows you to kind of collect that era a little bit, right? And still set collect. So you kind of itch a lot of the scratches you might have from a collector standpoint. So that's usually what inspires me. It's not people on Instagram. Nothing against people on Instagram, but that doesn't necessarily do it. What I like about some of the conversations collectors have on Instagram, they're thought provoking sometimes and make you think of like, why do I do what I do? But ultimately, collectors all kind of have that same gene. We love to collect. We love to change our mind. We love to sell. We love to buy more. We love to sell more. We feel guilty we bought too much, so we sell some. We all do the same kind of thing, right? So it's very similar. People have different sizes of wallets to do certain things and have different situations in life, so they have to be smart about it. But ultimately, I think we all kind of, bob and weave, and that's part of the journey. It's part of what's fun. I've always said that sometimes you're a steward of the card until you can pass it off to somebody else, especially within a collecting community. You're a steward of that card, and someone else gets to enjoy it. That's something fun about that. And there's some cards you just want to keep. You just want to be the one who keeps it. So that's what influences me.
Yep. Yeah. The comments I'll make on this topic are I've always found if it's been a long time where I say for a primary PC, such as like I said, Peyton Manning or Drew Brees, sometimes you get in a drought and you can't find any cards that you want, and you're just like, man, you're knocking on all the doors that you can find, and just nothing's happening, nothing's coming to auction, this, that, and the other. And I think that's when I have found that I start to explore the side PCs, and I'm like, hey, I've always been kind of interested in maybe collecting Steve Atwater cards. He was a next Arkansas Razorback. He's a Hall of Famer. It'd be really fun to collect him. And I thought it'd be cool, but then I got all these Steve Atwater cards, and I'm like, I really don't have a connection to him other than he played at Arkansas. So when it came time to sell some cards to get some money to buy something else, those were the first cards to go. Now I still have a Steve Atwater auto just to represent a place in my collection. But that's kind of that's one thing I always find is that the side PC stuff is always the first to go. So I'd say just be careful with what you spend on that stuff, because you're probably more apt to sell that than your main PC type cards, is what I'll say. Very good point.
Well, we're up against time constraints, so I think we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks, Drake, for an episode number 7. We got right on the 30-minute mark, which is great. Folks, your comments and questions, everything, all your engagement's important to us. It helps us have these conversations. So thank you for your questions, and thank you for your comments below, because we enjoy that. We enjoy the back and forth. So if you have any questions, any comments, any suggestions, opinions based on what we talked about today, please let us know in the comments below. Click and subscribe. The Sports Card Dad channel for Dustin here, but then you can also follow both Drake and myself on Instagram with our tags there, and you can listen to us and find us on Spotify. So please do that. Everyone have an enjoyable weekend. Enjoy collecting. Have fun out there. Be safe. We look forward to dissecting the latest questions and the latest news in the hobby that seems to happen every week anyway. So thanks, Drake, for taking the time today. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.